as already know, here to the board, I am Valts Treibergs, your president, John Zimmich, your vice president, Claire Weaverling, secretary, Noha, thank you, for treasurer, and Jesse and Bill, they're both up there counting votes and making sure everything is on the up and up. So thank you for participating in the board. All right. Membership. So new members, any new members on the list here in the room or on Zoom for the first time? Welcome. Well, as of March 1st, we have 745 total members, 3 honorary, 167 patron, 541 regular, 38 student. All right. Any questions? You can always send an email to Steve Emmert at membership@penastros.org about membership. Go Steve. All right. Donations. Suresh, you asked about this. Well, we look at Jacob's beautiful Rosette Nebula, SHO image. So we did receive a donation from Excel Energy Foundation. It was a matching employee grant contribution. So one of our members works for Excel and he filled out some paperwork and we got a nice donation. We also got an anonymous, generous member donation, cash donation as well. So thank you very much. So again, if you're working for a company, see if they have a matching grant program, see if they have some kind of other charitable giving program. My company does. They do quarterly, $250 quarterly gift, and I sign up for it, and I can do it once a year. So and it's worked out great. All right, so that's another option. Astro events in March. Things are starting to heat up a little bit. So right now, conjunction of Moon and Jupiter. Upcoming Mercury, highest in the evening sky. So Suresh, you're gonna do your
Try.
All right. All right. Conjunction of the Moon and Mars, March 8th, March 9th, conjunction of Venus and Mercury. That'd be kind of cool. All right. Full moon, total lunar eclipse, March 14th. That's going to be our first event, and I'll talk about that separately. Equinox, March 20th. Lunar occultation of Antares, Saturn ring plane crossing. Unfortunately, we're not going to really be able to see it. It's pretty much behind the sun at this point. So, conjunction of Moon and Saturn, March 28th. New moon, partial solar eclipse. Not here. But if you want to go see a partial solar eclipse, you can go up to Nova Scotia. I think it's up there. And then maybe this is a potential imaging challenge. March 31st. Makemake is at opposition, and it's in Coma Berenices. So let's see if we can image Makemake.
18 minutes.
Yeah, I think it's about 8 feet. Yeah, it's doable. No problem. Space missions of note. There was a couple of them today. Starship launched number 8. The booster was caught again. The ship blew it up again. So they got some work on it now. So that was that. Then also in the morning, the Intuitive Machines lander landed on the moon. But did they actually confirm everything is good?
It's on site.
It's on site again.
They don't know.
They don't know.
It's unknown.
It's unknown, so it's interesting. So March 12th, the ESA Hera spacecraft will be going by Mars, doing a gravity assist and getting some good observations of Deimos. So that was cool. All right. So those are astro events. So we unfortunately did lose a couple of beloved members. So I do want to talk about Bill Volnett a little bit. So Bill passed away very recently. So Bill was a longtime member of MAS, and we pretty much everybody knew him and knew the TARDIS. So he was a mechanical engineer from the University of Minnesota, graduate in 1950, worked for Honeywell Aerospace, started his own engineering company, and did a lot of really custom built optics and gimbals and a lot of really cool things for sensors and the aerospace industry. but he was also very into astronomy. He built a telescope called the TARDIS, which was basically a refractor telescope. And he actually talked about it in a couple of talks here at the MAS. And a bunch of us, I never saw it in person, but a bunch of us have already looked through it and observed it. He actually was able to take the TARDIS, a version of the TARDIS, and delivered it to Amundsen Scott Station in South Pole. He delivered it and then brought it back. So he got to go to the South Pole, the TARDIS, to do observation. And a lot of people have looked through it, sat in it in wintertime, summertime, keep the bugs out, wintertime, keep it nice and toasty warm. Here's a picture I found online on his website that's still active. Some of the people in this very room are standing in that picture. So looking at his mirror grinding lab, his optics lab, very interesting and very social, personable person. My experience with him, I was trying to recoat a mirror, an 8-inch mirror, and at the time Eisenhower wasn't available. So I actually reached out to Bill, because Bill had done a talk at MAS recently. Hey, Bill, can I coat my mirror in your lab? He goes, you probably could, but that coating machine hasn't been operating in 30 years. And then 5 minutes later, we were just talking and said, you want to buy my whole shop? So you wanted to sell me this whole shop. So didn't happen. But but Bill had his TARDIS at Stellafane and a bunch of other sites. I believe it was set up at Cherry Grove, and he's had it, I don't know if he ever had it at ELO, but he's had it set up at his home in Minneapolis and had people over. There will be a public celebration of life for Bill Saturday, March 22nd, from 1 to 3 p.m. at the Hollywood Theater on Johnson Street in Northeast. So if you look at his obituary, there's a link to that as well. So his son actually reconditioned and rebuilt the Hollywood Theater over there in East Minneapolis. So that sounds like a cool event. I might try to make that. So we all wish Bill in our memory is very, very kind, very fond. And then another member, also a longtime MAS contributor and member, Dale Jalvin, I believe. I didn't know Dale personally, but he was a member for a long time. And I was digging around in the Gemini archive online, which can do a full text search. And I found a little blurb from the original Twin City Astronomy Club record online where Dale showed color slides of some comet images that he was taking. So he was an astrophotographer back in 1975. How cool is that? So does anybody have any story or any story to tell either about Gail or about Bill? So please. Oh. Yeah. Kind of open your story about Bill. Yeah. I'll see if I can get it. You just start talking.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carl Anderson, member of MES. And I've worked at Honeywell for many years. I heard a number of folks speaking about Bill Jim. And was a point to meet him. I got his phone number and gave him a phone call. And he said, why don't we meet over at Marino's on the northeast side there? And so I met him. How you doing? I said, I like astronomy, so do I. I like amateur radio, he said, so do I. And he's trying to size me up. And he looks at me and says, okay, Carl, I bet you don't even know what a 6146 is. And I look at him and I smile, Bill, that's a beam power pentode. And he smiled at me, I smiled at him, and we were friends ever since. And a number of times we met our telescope making group locally, and he hosted it at his shop. He showed me a couple of these photos. His first one is him as a teenager and his handiwork. He explained to me that he would make these parts on it, I guess out of wood, and he'd put them in a bag and hop on the streetcar, go across town to a foundry. They would make the sand molds and pour the metal. He'd come home with a bag full of parts, and in his basement with his 10-inch lathe, he could carve out all these components. As Bill, as a teenager, in the next shot, here's his telescope. I don't know if you could zoom in, but he built the clock drive on it, the gears, teeth on the gears. He's got a turret for the eyepieces, maybe 5 or 6 eyepieces, all powerful. He could turn it to whichever magnification he wants. And here he's just in high school. Here's he worked at well, after high school he went to the University of Minnesota, and then got a job at Honeywell for 19 years. There's a little story about something that happened in the 1960s there when the space race was on. He was working late in the tech lab, and it's time to go home. So we went up the stairs and down the hallway. There's the vice president, managers, supervisors, all these bigwigs in the hallway. Wondered what the heck is going on. So he ducked into the restroom, and then he realized standing next to him is this tall fella. He looks over and says, "Hi, how you doing?" Tall fella looks back at him and says, "Good." And so then Bill leaves. The next day Bill comes to work. His supervisor comes in. Bill, did you meet Werner von Braun last night? The famous rocket scientist. He designed the Saturn V's. He said, "Oh, yes, we had a nice conversation." And then he started his own business, and one of his projects was this TARDIS. He was at a winter star party one night, freezing to death, and came into the warming house and had a coffee and a napkin, and he just started to draw the plans for the TARDIS on a napkin. And when I say drawing on a napkin, he actually literally could draw a 3D view of a sketch. Some of us had a nickname, we called it Volnicad, some of our sketches. He was a true, yeah, there he is, just walking up to the blackboard and starting to draw a 3D rendering. Incidentally, one of the things he did, he had a blackboard set up on the South Pole with that Hagomoro chalk, that special chalk that everybody talks about. Before that, they never had a blackboard at the South Pole. It's inscribed. Here's one of our club meetings out in the back. I think it was Ben Mullen. He was melting up some aluminum, and he poured that aluminum into this mold on the ground, and ended up with some telescope parts that he was going to machine. And these were about 15 years ago, when the club was a little more active. Nice shot of Bill. Very, very nice mentor. He had a couple of sayings that really stuck to me. He said, you should design a device so that, not that you shouldn't design a device so that it'll wear out. You should design a device so that it will wear in. And that stuck with me. Give it some thought, more thought in the beginning, things will go a lot better. The other little saying he said to me is stuck with me also is you can never hope to make anything better than you can measure it. And that's some real words of wisdom. He's been a wonderful friend to me, and I appreciate knowing him. I'm going to miss him.
I think we all will. Thanks, Brian.
Stories.
Does anyone else have any? Yep.
I have to tell the story about our Winter Star Party. We got tired of hearing about these pansies in Florida and their Winter Star Party. So we had one on the Gunflint Trail in January. And Bill had an ex-student who was working in the lab at Tower Sudan. And the TARDIS was transported on a trailer. And so he drug the trailer and the TARDIS all the way up to Tower Sudan and then back down. And when he got down to, I can't remember the town, but he decided to run the TARDIS through the car wash to get the grime and rime or something. Well, the pressure was high enough that it forced a thin film of water under the door seals. And so when he got out to our site and he had the TARDIS set up, he couldn't open the door. So he spent a good part of the next morning with a heat gun thawing out the door so he could open it. And the TARDIS, you know, would turn 360 degrees, and with that telescope hanging off the side, it looked like a gun turret. And there was nobody up there but us and the snowmobilers. And so he'd get up there and track a snowmobile with that. They didn't know what was going on with that. So that was one of the stories I remember. And he would, my son would go up there. He would always get children in his TARDIS because it was about the size of, as you saw, the telephone booth. And the seat was just big enough that you could get two people in there. And of course, the eyepiece came right through the wall. And so he always was getting children in there to show them what was going on and what we were looking at.
Right, thank you.
My story is short and sweet. I actually met Bill in 1987, 15 years before I moved here. And I posted this on my school. So I used to go to AstroFest, which was sponsored by the Chicago Astronautical Society. I used to live in Chicago. And I used to be one of the big four star parties, one of the Texas Star Party, Riverside Telescope Makers Conference, and Stumpfing. So I remember I was 16 years old, and I was wandering the fields at AstroFest, and I came up to this phone booth looking thing, and started talking to me. And he was I remember it was very nice. But then I was thinking to myself, if, you know, this guy's from Minnesota, and if he needs this to observe in Minnesota, I've never moved there. And here I am. That's my story.
All right, thanks. All right, well, we'll keep Bill right here. I think we all had some interactions. All right, thanks. Be here. Thank you. All right, thanks. All right. Right, then, this Saturday, the VSIG will have, another presentation on Zoom, and this time it will be Tom Field from our spectroscopy. Any comments on that, Suresh?
Yeah, be the. Hi, everyone. This is a special presentation. Tom Fields, the president of our spectroscopy. And it's a really neat system that he has that allows amateur astronomers to essentially do spectroscopy, like real spectroscopy. And so I got him to agree to speak to our group on Saturday. And we have a few members I know in the room here that do or have tried spectroscopy. But the reason I tried to book this one is to get more interest in this. And so I'm hoping we get a big turnout for this one. I'll just read a really quick synopsis of what he wrote. Even if you wanted to touch a star, they're all impossibly distant. In spite of these great distances, astronomers have learned an enormous amount about stars. The most common method to study stars is called spectroscopy, which is the science of analyzing the colorful rainbow spectrum produced by a prism-like device. Until recently, spectroscopy was too expensive, too complicated for all but a handful of astronomers. But today, there are new tools that make spectroscopy accessible to almost all of us. So it goes on from there, but I think it is nice. So hopefully I get a big turnout for that one.
Thanks for asking. Then on Saturday, March 15th, Rebecca Messer is holding a new member orientation meeting, and that she picks different libraries around the Twin Cities. This time it's going to be at the Kaboja Library in South St. Paul. It's in person only, will not be done on Zoom. Rebecca's done a great job with all of those so far, and so another opportunity to sit in and meet some new people and learn about MAS. She talks about all the MAS facilities, what becoming a key holder, all the resources available to members, and benefits of membership, and it's just a fun time. So Rebecca's holding that at 10 o'clock on Saturday, March 15th. So the first star party of the year will be Thursday, March 13th into Friday morning because the lunar eclipse is kind of late. So the penumbral phase starts at 10:58 p.m. The umbral phase starts at 10 minutes after midnight. Totality will be from 1:26 to 2:31, and that's Friday early a.m. So ELO plans on being open starting at 9 p.m., correct? And then ending at 3 a.m. And this is an event that is canceled if cloudy, and no speakers or anything are scheduled at this time for this ELO event. So this is the first ELO public star party of the year. So, yeah.
If it is cloudy, where can members go to find out that? Yeah.
So if it is canceled, it's really we'll put up a cancellation notice on the calendar page on the website as soon as we find out. So Doug, if you're going to cancel it, let me know ASAP, and we'll put that out, and also put it out on the forum. We'll put it out on Slack.
Facebook.
All right.
Facebook for the public.
Facebook.
On Facebook as well, Facebook for the public, the social media coordinator, Chris, will post that as well. Yep. All right, some other events, for March. So, there'll be another, regular ELO public star party. That's always on, not canceled if it's cloudy. So that's on Saturday, March 22nd. Again, ELO key holders are always welcome to help out, and Doug always is requesting additional support for all the ELO public star parties. So talk to Doug if you want to help out. LCC will have its first member observing weekend, March 21st and 22nd. To reserve a spot at LCC, you go to the forum and on the Long Lake Conservation Center discussion forum. You can sign up. Our committee has put together all the dates for the summer, and you can sign up to say how many people are coming. That way we can tell the LLCC how many rooms to put aside for us, because we do get bunkhouses. We share rooms, we get up to four or six people per room. So we try to put as many people as we can in the room as possible. So that, and also the following weekend as well, March 28th, 29th. We will put up on the forum if those get canceled because of bad weather. We may cancel it if the field is wet and soggy and all, and it's just not good. But, so keep an eye on the forum for that. The next monthly meeting will be here Thursday, April 3rd at 7 p.m. Speaker will be Dr. Roberta Humphreys from the U of M. So it should be a great talk. And CGO and JJC and ELO keyholder training sessions start in April. So you look on the forum, look in the happenings. I believe the schedules have been published. And so keyholder training sessions, you can start signing up for those. Does anyone else have any other public service announcements? All right, Mr. Jerry Jones.
That's me.
Mr. Jerry, I don't have to use the fake Jerry Jones. I have a fake Jerry Jones, but it didn't work last year.
Really?
Last time, yeah. So it won't work this time.
Do I get to be the fake one or the real one?
You can be the real one. There's only one.
I don't know, it might be more fun to be the fake one. One never knows. Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Should I be, is there a camp? Oh, there's a camp. My name is Jerry Jones. I have the pleasure of being the Astronomical League coordinator for Minnesota Astronomical Society. My primary job is to be the observing projects coordinator, and I get to hand out awards. So I get to hand out 3 awards tonight. There's only 2 on the board because there's a secret special award. How cool is that? The first one, John Zimmich. Come on up, John. John completed his urban. Applause, applause, applause. He completed his urban, and here's the certificate and the pin. Nice looking pin. And there was, so the whole urban issue, the urban observing project, is only available if you can't see the Milky Way. If you can see the Milky Way, you're not allowed to work on this particular project. However, we had an issue with yours, didn't we? And the particular individual who was taking care of checking to make sure that John did a good job made an error. He made an expectation, an assumption that was incorrect. And we got it cleaned up. But this is an important point because it's also part of the project. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the error that I made?
I'm glad to clarify. No. No, so as Jerry said, to work on this award, the requirement is you have to have urban skies, which means you can't see the Milky Way. That's the litmus test. If you can see the Milky Way, you can't count those observations. And in my part of this observation, and I pointed out it's actually really a good program. And the way I worked it, I just kind of worked it in with things because in Maple Grove where I live, I can't see the Milky Way anymore. When I first moved out there, I wouldn't have been able to do this, but now I can't. And so I can just go, you can just step outside. And so I worked on this program over several years, I didn't have to go anywhere. So when it was that type of scenario, I just step outside. Well, since I moved in there, trees were growing and I used to be able to observe in my backyard. I can't anymore. I moved to the front yard and my horizon, because of these trees, I kind of have this horseshoe thing that I can view objects that are in that. Well, a number of the objects are a little bit lower in the sky, and so I can't see them. And I happened to be out at ELO. I was doing a couple other things, and I was looking at, primarily I was observing the moon that night, and then I thought, wait a minute, I can't see the Milky Way. And these objects that I needed to get were right on the horizon there, and I thought, gee, I can observe those. Yep, sky conditions where I could not see the Milky Way. I observed just, as a few objects that were in the low sky, and I put those down and I had them on my submission. And Jerry, of course, So this is to a test. Jerry actually does check these things when he handed it in. So it's true. You know,
I read almost every single word, almost every single word.
so you have to be honest. You know, he keeps you honest. And he sent me back and said, I have a problem here. He says, you know, ELO, you know, the conditions there don't qualify for urban. And I said, well, the way I read it, you know, it's nice, you know, you're playing a lawyer hat and then, oh, how I read it. But, no, so then I just explained to him what the requirements were and so then, yeah, I ended up coming out all right on that one.
Yep, and that is true. One of the interesting glitches or advantages to the urban is that the issue is in the moment, can you see the Milky Way? If you cannot, you are eligible to work on this particular project. So congratulations for catching us both on that. Well done. Well done. All right, Tom Holman has been a busy man. He's done it again. He's done another one. He completed the lunar project, although a little bit differently than any lunar project I have worked through, at least at this point in time. But what's interesting about the lunar project is that if you do the full lunar project, lunar one, there's a naked eye, there's a binocular, and there's a telescope. So if you do all three, and if you complete it, you wind up doing that, and you get 3 certificates, 1 pin, but 3 certificates. So congratulations, Tom. Now, you did something rather unusual this time. Well, at least unusual for us and for me. How did you do this one?
You mean I did imaging?
But yes, but you did it with.
A C-star S50.
And so how did you go about working that with taking care of the required requirements for the balloon?
Well, of course, you have to do the naked eye with the naked eye. And you have to do binoculars with binoculars, which is the hardest part, actually. I don't have very good binoculars, but when you mount them on a tripod, you can kind of do it. It works okay. But C-star does a really nice job with the lunar. So you get a pretty good level of detail. You can see little tiny craters. And so you have to identify 100 objects on them. Some of those are the naked eye, some are, but the rest of them are with C-star. You have to take them several different areas, several different phases. And you have to find the moon within 48 hours of a new moon, and you have to find craters within 4 days and 7 days and 10 days and 14 days. So the C-star was pretty good with that. Clouds are what make it tricky because if it's cloudy on the 4th day, you gotta wait till the next one. So.
And the reason why I'm picking on for Tom here is because this was unusual for me. I've done a lot of the lunar ones, but this is the first one that I've ever anyone do an imaging, and especially with C-star. And I want to bring that out because I am impressed that that's possible and very doable. How difficult?
Well, you know, I've been doing all of the programs I've been doing with C-star, and it's really not that hard. The tracking is excellent. The ability to find objects is excellent. And it doesn't do a very good job on planetary, but it does a great job on the moon, does a great job on the sun, does a great job on deep space. So it really wasn't that difficult.
Cool. Well, congratulations. Well done. Hang on. So our third secret one, we have another master in the room. Although unfortunately she doesn't belong here. She belongs in Raleigh, since that's what it says on her certificate. Trina, come on up. She has finished her master level outreach award. Congratulations. Congratulations, Lord. And it simply happened to, poor Maynard made a slight mistake.
Yeah. Raleigh, astronomy club.
Yeah,
Instead of
we're
the
gonna
Raleigh.
get it fixed. But so,
She's gonna fix it.
Have you been cheating on those?
I said, I asked her, I thought she was moving.
Nobody knows the sexual occupations.
Okay. So, come on back.
Okay.
So, give us a little bit of an idea of, first of all, what the outreach award is and how much additional work does it take to become a master?
Oh, well, it doesn't take a lot of work, especially if you like doing outreach. If you can volunteer for anything, you can earn this. And it did take a little bit, even as busy as I
How many hours
was.
did you have to put in?
Well, a total of 100 above the other two.
Which
So-
is?
Which is 10 for the basic,
Yep.
10 hours.
Yep.
And another 50 hours
Yep.
for
Good.
stellar. And then master is another 100. So it's 160 total of volunteer
Which is
hours.
a lot of hours.
Yes. And the spreadsheet that they give you has like 15 lines. This is an Excel spreadsheet. And they have it very simple. It gives you 15 lines. It took me like 50 lines to get everything done. And it's about 2 years for each one, just because I wasn't doing ELO. If you go to ELO, you can probably get it done in a year. But I was not doing that, so.
So of your 160 hours, do you have one particular story that jumps out of all of the outreach that you did?
One particular story. Not really.
The little kid coming up and licking his thumb and.
Oh, good God. Yeah, there was that. That was Da Vinci Fest this year. The child had a cold and a runny nose and was eating cotton candy. And I decided to try and look through my telescope. And for his balance, grabbed the eyepiece. I just said, I'm done for the day. The telescope's giving me to
And of
go
course, that
away.
was tells you.
Now that-
Where-
Yeah, the real expensive $500 ones. No, but this isn't the $10 eyepiece from Orion.
Well, congratulations. Well done. Well done.
Thank you,
But it
Jerry.
Well done. Oh, and of
Oh.
course,
Wait, it doesn't count for master observer though.
it does not count for master observer. No, it doesn't.
So this is just.
But you are a
good
master
old-fashioned
anyway, and
fun.
you're a master in our hearts.
Okay, so-
Okay, Jerry, say it.
And after all that, get out there and observe.
Hey. Thank you, Jerry. There it is. All right, in the AL vein still, the NCRAL convention is still open for registration. So, and if you're staying at the hotel at the Minneapolis Marriott Southwest in Minnetonka, $139 per night. Registration is $154, includes the banquet. April 25th, barbecue at, and observing at ELO. And there'll be vendor displays and speakers, various people we know, Bob King, a bunch of professors from the U of M, and some AL speakers as well. So that's still an opportunity, a good convention to sign up for. And I don't know when the last day of registration is, but that's when it's going to be, April 25th. All right, loaner scope. Anton, you have anything? Please fill us in.
Well, it's the usual, of course, members are eligible to use one of our loaner scopes for a month at a time. We have Dobsonians, we have some cancer gratings, we have some binoculars, a couple of refractors. The procedure is to go online, where you can find this form and just fill out your request. I get the request and then we arrange a meeting in my driveway where I will give you the telescope and explain all the accessories. You can also borrow these great courses, DVDs on all things astronomy. They are underused. I have a whole box of them. And so you can go online and see what all the titles are and use those if you like as well.
What is your summer hiatus? You advise. this
Oh,
to be
yes,
on?
yes. I will be out of town. When is it here?
June 9th through the 25th.
June 9th through the 25th. And so what that means is there'll be no telescopes coming in or out during that time. So members who want to borrow a telescope during that period need to be sure that they make the request early. Now, there's an advantage to that, because if your due date would have normally been during those 3 weeks, I'm not going to be there to get it, so you'll get actually a longer loan out of it. Yeah, so, and then of course, yeah, obviously, there won't be any telescopes coming in or out during that period, so plan ahead, I guess is the word.
Yep, and we'll keep people informed about that, of course. Yep. You. All right, next up. Weekly happenings. So every Tuesday, the MailChimp newsletter comes out. Our secretary Claire has been doing a great job keeping on top of everything. And if you have any news, any events, anything to contribute to the happenings, email it to secretary@mnastro.org by Thursday, correct? Thursday is your deadline?
Yeah, Fridays.
Friday, Thursday or Friday, for the following Tuesday coming up. We try to put things in there that are the most current, up to date, like the next following start parties, the next meeting, stuff like that. We are on various, platforms, Slack, the forums, Slack is restricted to members only. So when you apply for Slack as a new member, we'll check you against the membership list to make sure you can qualify, because we have a limit on how many people can participate in Slack. But it's a great tool, it's a communication tool. It's modern. There's a modern web interface. There's an app interface for your phone. You can do sharing, huddles, all that stuff. It's really cool. We also have the forums online, which we are still very active. We're not going to get rid of. Those are still very active again for all of the LLCC weekend reservations, announcements, discussions, marketplace, all of that's still on the forum. All of the key holder specialty forums also on there. So that's being actively maintained. And then we are on Instagram, Facebook, and various other, we're going to try to get on other social media platforms. So Chris Bethia is our social media coordinator. If you would like to share an image or share a story or share something on any of the MAS social media platforms, send it to socialmedia@astro.org, and we'll put it on our Facebook page and our other sites. We do recommend that you watermark your images. That way you get credit for your image. So take credit for your own stuff. YouTube. So all the meetings, all the BSIG events are recorded, edited, and posted on YouTube. It's usually between a couple days and a week after the event. So after this meeting, we have to do some editing, and we'll post it on YouTube. And so just search for Minnesota Astronomical Society on YouTube, and you'll find our pages. We sell the official MAS stuff at Cafe Press. So from the main website, you can get to our page and pick our different logos. We're getting very, very close to adding additional artwork onto the pages, so you can pick and choose and have a wider variety of items to purchase. So that is available, and Jesse's been working on some new really cool stuff. So can't wait till we put all that stuff on. We're also looking at possibly upgrading Cafe Press to a different site, a different provider, maybe with better costs or a different level of quality of products. All right, Gemini, Father Brown always is interested in articles. So if you go somewhere, do something, learn something new, something cool, do an outreach event that's really interesting, write an article about it, put some pictures, send them all that stuff. And we will post it in Gemini. It comes out several times a year. And so you can email it to gemini@astro.org. So that's a great resource. You didn't tell me I had to.
Yes, you have to do those.
Okay, don't look at that devil. All right, so that's a good reminder. All right, any other public announcements while we look at another great image jellyfish nebula from Jacob? All right, very good. So presentations. We used to have the Better Know a Constellation. I still have that book. Trina gave it to me, and I can't get rid of it. I have it. I'll have it forever. But we're opening this up to everybody's presentations. So today we actually had 2 presentations scheduled, but we're because our technical issues with Zoom and everything, and we ran along with the budget, we're only gonna do one member presentation. So the second member presentation that Ahmed was gonna do, that was planned, we're actually gonna do that some other time. And we actually have another member that submitted a member presentation, so they're starting to come in. So if you got something new, something you want to talk about, whether it's a constellation, better known constellation, or whether you got a new telescope, or you do a new technique, or you went to an observatory, a 1,000-year-old observatory, and took a lot of pictures and want to talk about it, we want to hear about it. It's all interesting stuff. So send your proposal to Ahmed at programs@mnastro.org. And then we'll set you in one of the upcoming member meetings. So, but for this meeting, you're gonna have to listen to me because I'm doing the member presentation. So, all right, what I'm gonna talk about is this guy right here. So I'm gonna talk about the restoration of the Carl Zeiss Jena 63840 1956 school telescope, which was my new recent baby. So a little bit of background about Zeiss. So Zeiss is a long-term company in Germany. So founded in 1846 by Carl Zeiss in Jena, Germany. And his specialization was precision optics of the day in 1846. And he then joined forces with Ernst Abbe. And so it's always been Zeiss and Abbe who really founded the optical quality of the Zeiss company. And so Abbe was able to introduce more scientific principles to the development of the lenses and optics in general. And it's not just astronomical, we're talking about all kinds of military optics, terrestrial optics, all of that kind of stuff. So in the late 19th century, Zeiss began producing high-quality refracting telescopes for observatories all around the world. And there's been all kinds of collaborations and innovations that the Zeiss companies have gone through. So, example, in 1897, it did a partnership with astrophysicist Karl Schwarzschild, leading to scientifically optimized telescopes. So I think that's where they were getting into the baffles and the refracting index and getting the multi-lens refractors really understood mathematically and physically on how all that stuff works. So over that time, Zeiss refracting telescopes gained global recognition for their excellence optical quality. So everyone was clamoring for a Zeiss. All of the high-end observatories wanted Zeiss optics. So early in the 20th century, they expanded into some reflecting telescopes. They had some technology for coating mirrors, and they started building larger professional observatory equipment. They also started developing planetarium projectors. So if you remember the day before the digital projectors like this, you had the sphere with all the lenses, and they were such cool optical things that actually projected pinpoints of light that could be programmed and moved throughout the dome and sky. And there was a number of those instruments in the Minnesota area, and university and other areas here, but they're very well known for all that. So that's the projection planetarium. One of their most famous ones is the Deutsches Museum in Munich, right there in Germany. So post World War II, Zeiss was split into two companies, East Germany and West Germany. So the Jena division, Carl Zeiss Jena, was on the East Germany side, and Carl Zeiss Oberkochen was on the West Germany side. So that's where they started specializing in different optics and different instruments. So, but to this day, Zeiss is an active and modern company doing modern optics, spectroscopy, doing electron microscopy, doing very, very high-end things, cameras and telescopes and all kinds of other optics, special optics. And also very, very important in the semiconductor industry when you're printing the circuits onto the silicon wafers. So these are just images from Zeiss Legacy. So one of the most interesting and famous Zeiss refractors is the 12-inch refractor at the Griffith Observatory outside of Los Angeles. This is the planetarium projector in the Deutsches Museum in Munich. And its largest telescope instrument is the 74-inch reflector in Egypt. And today, Zeiss is still known for scanning electron microscopy, helium-ion microscopes. They do a lot of optics for cameras, and cell phones, and a lot of little sub-assemblies throughout the world have the Zeiss labels on it. Yeah.
Medical devices.
Medical devices, absolutely, lots of medical devices, in the optics and the photometry and the spectroscopy, when you do that kind of quantum and optical analysis. So very, very famous today. All right, so let's talk about this bad boy. So I purchased this in June of last year, and I found out about it actually through Russ Durkee. He posted on the forum and said, hey, refractor nuts, this could be a really cool refractor. No one really moved on it. But of course, as soon as I found on it, I was gone. I had to go down to Northfield to do it. So this was most likely, and I couldn't get the full background story on this telescope, but since it was in Northfield, I assume is one of the professors or one of the people that from Carleton who had this as a personal instrument. But it is a school telescope. It was marketed as a school telescope, and I'll get into that. But so what came with it was the steel tube. It's all steel. It's not brass or it's not aluminum. It's actually steel, except for the brass fittings and the focuser tube. Brass focuser. It is 0.965 eyepiece size, so it is an older eyepiece generation. Unfortunately, didn't have any eyepieces. Zeiss eyepieces, especially in North America, are really, really hard to find. And if you do find them, they're really, really ridiculously expensive. Like they're more expensive than a big television. It's just crazy. They're a little more commonly available in Europe, but still, it's really hard to find. And people who have Zeiss collections hold on to them. All right. So what do we get? So what's in the box? So original, it's a 63 diameter optic. It's a doublet. So serial number 23320, focal distance of 84 centimeters. So what this has is Zeiss had basically a proprietary system, like a quick change system where you can change out the camera with a kind of a dovetail, a round dovetail. And that was very common for the Zeiss type of telescopes all the way around since early in the 20th century. Has a focuser, a rack and pinion focuser, everything intact and all that. So there was these terrible stains on the tube. It's a painted tube, black anodized aluminum or brass. I think that's not anodized brass, but it's either painted brass or anodized aluminum lens cell. I really didn't touch it. I just had to clean the glass. It even had original coatings on it. And it had a built-in dovetail, but the dovetail is in between size. It's smaller than a Vixen size dovetail, so it wouldn't fit on a standard type saddle. And then I didn't get, unfortunately, a mount with this. The mount would have been awesome, but you'll see that I figured out a way around it. So I started digging around the Zeiss archives. Zeiss puts everything available on the internet. So based on the serial number of that objective, I found from the Zeiss archive that this telescope was manufactured April 12th, 1956. So I got really good provenance on where that and when that telescope was made. That's pretty cool. All right, so Zeiss telescopes of the era. So before this telescope was made, so back in the 1920s, they came out with their first 60 millimeter refractor called the Traveler. And this is an image from a catalog from back back in those days. And then a little bit later, they had another, a model, but it was also basically the same optics. But they called it, they put it on a different style mount. They called it the Asegur. So very similar, similar type of doublet optics. And there's a lot of restored, there's a restored version of that in a pristine mount from the era. Pretty cool. All right, so they continued making this telescope even into the 1990s. And most currently, the 60 millimeter was either the Zeiss Telementor or the Zeiss Telemontor. So those are still available and for sale. You can see them as used scopes, especially in Europe, but they fetch a pretty penny. And unfortunately, you know, I was looking for some used Telemontor mount parts to reconstruct my mount, but I couldn't get that done. So I had to go some other ways. But they stopped selling this in the mid 1990s. So Zeiss really does not do a lot of, they don't sell an amateur grade telescope anymore like they used to. They stopped that in the 1990s. They do sell optics though as just, you know, alone, and then you have to build up your own system. But basically that's, they stopped making amateur telescopes in the 90s. So this particular telescope, it's called the Schul telescope. So it's really a school model. So I found several pictures online. This is the actual catalog of this model. So it stands on a pedestal. It's got a simple equatorial mount. It's not clock driven or anything. This shows a sun projection screen on it, and a pedestal mount with a small little eyepiece accessory holder. And then basically it looks like a big umbrella mount on the bottom. Didn't want to do something like that, big concrete mount, concrete filled piece of plastic or metal. At that point, I wanted to do something a little more portable. So what did I end up doing? So I started restoring the scope. As I said, I really didn't have to touch the optical lens cell. I just had to clean the optics. It's very, very good condition. But the paint was in very, very poor condition. So I had to strip it down to bare metal. And then here is showing in my paint booth in my basement that I made on my rotisserie. It's the same apparatus that I did when I restored the 6-inch Gartner scope. This is what I shrunk it down a little bit for this scope. So it constantly turns the scope at a real slow rate, and I actually paint it with the brush. I don't use air. I don't use spray paint. I use a brush paint on all my scopes. So that's what I do. The tube. So finders. So interestingly enough, the finders for these scopes were actually these monoculars. And I happen to have a small monocular based on also from a German company called Emmy and Busch, which is down the road from Zeiss. So I didn't have an original Zeiss monocular, but I did have this Busch one, which is basically the same. It's a little bit smaller in aperture, but it has a good crosshair and that. But I didn't have a mount for it. So I designed it in CAD and 3D printed the mount. So the mount is 3D printed for the finder right there. All right, so restoration. So basically took apart everything, cataloged all the screws, measured all the screws, cleaned up all the old grease, pretty much like what I did. The actual draw tube, I did not have to repaint. The draw tube was actually in pretty good shape, so that's where I got the color from. And then it was missing a lens cap. So I also 3D printed I found a nice Zeiss Jena logo online and made a 3D printed cap right there. So put all that together. So I ended up getting all that together. And then I had to start thinking about the mount. So luckily, a year before, I found an old Edmund Scientific Space Conqueror mount on Facebook Marketplace for $10, which I bought. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen these kind of mounts or used these kind of mounts in the past. They were bread and butter back in the day. So like I mentioned, the actual saddle that came with the dovetail that came on the scope was a different size. It wasn't a common Vixen size or anything like that. But based on the dimension, it actually was a camera mount size. It was Arca Swiss, and it worked perfectly. And on Amazon, I found a saddle for the Arca Swiss for $24. It was great. So that was perfect. I was able to integrate it with the Edmund mount with an aluminum block. Put a new painted the mount from Edmund gray to a nice black, and then I ordered a tube, basically a steel thick wall pedestal tube, and then used the Edmund screw-on bolt-on legs for the base instead of that big round bulbous thing. So I can take those apart and a little more transportable. But as you can see, it's quite heavy and it's very, very stable. And then lastly, I built a little wooden eyepiece holder and tray. So eyepieces, I didn't have any decent eyepieces, the 965 eyepieces. So I was looking around. I ended up finding eyepieces actually on Etsy. And a seller in the Netherlands was selling a set of Mizar Japanese orthos. So Avi Ortho, Avi is the guy that designed the ortho eyepiece. And so I figured these things might be Japanese, but they're pretty good. So I have a set of Avi ortho eyepieces from Mizar, and I got those shipped in about a month. It took a while to get it over the border, but finally got everything together. I did have an old 965 diagonal in my junk box, and I cleaned that up, so that worked out fine. That's probably an old 1960s, early 60s Tasco prism diagonal, but it's fine, works fine. And I got everything together. So this is the scope, and then first light was December 2024. Looked at Moon, the Jupiter. So far, for a 60 millimeter scope, it's one of the best 60 millimeter scopes you can ever look through. So I plan on bringing this to BSIGs and maybe some other events. And so definitely come up and look at the scope and play with it, move it around on the mount, and see the restoration. But at some point, you'll hopefully be able to look at it through in one of our events. So basically, that's what I want to do. So any questions on the Zeiss restoration?
How long did it take?
Most of it was waiting for stuff to ship. So yeah, once I got going on it, the actual work time between paint drying and all that, probably 3 weeks. Yeah, 3 weeks, like a day to do all the 3D printing, and I painted the 3D printed parts and that stuff. I use a nylon filament for my 3D printing. It's a little more durable than a PLA or ABS 3D printer.
What's the weight?
Yep.
What's the weight?
Well, the bulk of the weight's this, because it's really, really thick, heavy pipe. So I would say 60 pounds, double in. Yep. But the OTA itself is steel, so it's pretty heavy. Not like most of the Japanese 60 millimeters. They're pretty light because they're aluminum tubes. All right, so it's 9 o'clock. Like I said, yeah, John.
I just you said you brush when you refurbish stoves rather than spray. Why is that?
I just think there's more control. Spray to me it seems inconsistent, but for a brush, especially if you're rotating the scope all the time and it doesn't drip, so the rotation prevents the dripping, you just get more control. And I think you can do a thicker coat, one time thicker coat. So that's it. So next month, we will have Ahmed's presentation of Sufi's Book of Fixed Stars as our member presentation. And we also have another presentation waiting in the wings, but please submit your member presentations. And lastly, I will just say, hold on. The next meeting. Oh, yes. Good point. The budget passed unanimously.
So hope's pretty.
Yes, yes, it's good. It is.
Nice job.
Yeah. All right, so, tonight, for people who want to go, Pizza Luce is open and we'll meet there. I can't make it, unfortunately. But, next month, right here at the community center, Professor Emerita, Dr. Roberta Humphreys is talking. So we can't wait till that. All right, thanks for coming and, thanks for passing our budget. Let's get the observing year kicked off.